We're just 1 week away from Apple unveiling its flagship iPhone 17 series, and while analysts have been bracing us for price hikes across the boards, a new report from JPMorgan suggests the reality might be less painful. In fact, for most models, prices could stay exactly the same as last year. According to a research note seen by 9to5Mac, JPMorgan projects the standard 17 will hold steady at $799, the brand new 17 Air will likely land between $899 and $949, the Pro Max remain unchanged at $1199, and the only model that actually will see an increase is the iPhone 17 Pro, but that's more of a storage shuffle than a straight price increase. Instead of starting at 128 gigs for $999, the Pro is expected to start at 256 gigs for $1099. So yes, it technically costs more to get in the door, but at the 256 gig tier, the pricing is identical to last year's 16 Pro. The biggest wildcard is the 17 Air. Since it's replacing the Plus model with a brand new ultra-thin design, Apple could justify bumping the price up to $949. But if they hold at $899, that would be impressive considering it has a new design, and so you'd expect Apple to increase the price. Do remember though, if the 17 and 17S stay at $799 and $899, they likely won't get more base storage and will stay at 128 gigs. Either way, if these projections are correct, the 17 family won't be massively affected by inflation and rising component costs. And that sets the stage perfectly for everything else we've been hearing, because when you strip away the pricing noise, what really matters are the new features, accessories, and design changes. And one of the most talked about leaks right now isn't actually about the phone itself, it's about the cases. Apple's reportedly preparing to launch a brand new accessory line called TechWoven. Now that might sound strange, cases aren't usually headline news. Normally we'd be talking about chipsets, display upgrades, or camera changes, but this time cases are front and center, and if you remember Apple's recent history, you'll know why. Just 2 years ago, Apple made a massive deal about moving away from leather. They said it was all about environmental concerns and their goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030, and that's when FineWoven arrived. On paper, it sounded like a win-win, a premium fabric alternative made from 68% post-consumer recycled material, designed to feel luxurious while being better for the planet. But in practice, FineWoven turned into one of Apple's most criticized accessories ever. These cases stained easily, scratched if you so much as looked at them, and instead of feeling premium, they felt like flimsy cardboard. For something Apple marketed as a leather replacement, they didn't even come close. The backlash was brutal. Customers complained that cases costing £59 in the UK or $59 in the US looked worse than cheap knockoffs after a week of usage. Reviews panned them, social media roasted them with memes and durability tests. Even Apple retail employees reportedly hated selling them because customers would be returning them so often. It was one of those rare moments where Apple, usually the king of accessories, completely fumbled the ball. And by the time the iPhone 16 launched, FineWoven was quietly discontinued. No fanfare, no statement, just gone. Enter TechWoven. According to reliable leaker Mijimbu, Apple's gone back to the drawing board and redesigned its fabric cases from scratch. The new TechWoven line is expected to debut with the iPhone 17 series, and the goal is simple: fix everything that FineWoven got wrong. The material has reportedly been reinforced for greater durability, with a tighter weave and a different texture that looks less fragile. Early leaked images show us a more muted finish with colors like black, blue, green, purple, and even orange. And of course, when Apple officially launches these, don't expect them to just say orange. It'll be something like sienna or deep indigo to make it sound fancier. But TechWoven isn't just about durability. Another big change is metallic buttons. That may sound minor, but if you have used Apple's older fabric or silicone cases, you know that buttons always felt mushy compared to pressing the actual iPhone buttons. If Apple's fixing that with proper metal button covers, that's a real quality of life upgrade. The metal buttons, by the way, were previously exclusive to the leather cases, so I'm glad to see they're here with the TechWoven cases. They'll also support MagSafe as you'd expect, and they'll be compatible with Apple's new camera control button, which will be standard across the iPhone 17 series just like it is on the 16 series. But here's where things get interesting. These cases are rumored to feature 2 small holes at the bottom, designed to attach accessories like a lanyard or even a crossbody strap. Now, if you've been paying attention to fashion and lifestyle trends, you'll know this is actually a pretty smart move. In parts of Asia and Europe, carrying your phone like an accessory, whether around your neck or slung across your body like a bag, has become surprisingly popular. It's practical because it makes your phone harder to steal, but it's also turned into a bit of a style statement. Personally, it's not something I'd ever do, but clearly Apple thinks it's a trend worth leaning into. In fact, leaked packaging even references a crossbody strap, which looks like an official Apple add-on you'll be able to buy separately. Now here's my personal take: I would never spend this much money on an Apple case. For me, brands like Spigen or ESR are much better value. Sure, their cases may not be as exciting or fashionable, but they do the basics of what a case should do, protect the phone, and they cost a fraction of Apple's price. At the end of the day though, some just want that first party Apple accessory to fully feel in the ecosystem, and fair enough, but for me it's Spigen and ESR all day long. Quick pause before we dive into the iPhone 17 hardware. If you're enjoying this breakdown and want to stay ahead of all the latest Apple leaks, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers, so every sub counts. iPhone season is just heating up, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. So that's TechWoven, Apple's attempt at redemption in the case department, but let's shift gears because the iPhone 17 itself is shaping up to be just as exciting. According to Weibo leaker Instant Digital, the 17 Pro Max could feature a 48MP telephoto camera with true variable zoom. In plain English, that means a lens that can seamlessly switch between 5x and 8x optical zoom without relying on digital cropping. That's a big deal. Right now the 16 Pro Max tops out 5x with a fixed 120mm focal length. Yes, Apple offers a 2x zoom, but that's just a crop from the main sensor. If the 17 Pro Max introduces true variable zoom, it would put Apple on par with or even slightly ahead of Samsung's periscope lenses, which have been the industry gold standards. Imagine being able to take crystal clear shots at multiple focal lengths, all without sacrificing quality. That's the kind of upgrade that actually changes how people use their cameras day to day. But the changes aren't just in the camera system. Inside, Apple's reportedly continuing its experiment with metal encased batteries. This first appeared in the iPhone 16 Pro, and now it looks like it's here to stay. These steel encased batteries aren't just about durability, they're also designed to dissipate heat more efficiently. Pair that with a redesigned motherboard and even a vapor chamber cooling system, and it seems Apple's finally addressing one of the iPhone's long-standing issues: thermal performance. There are even whispers of two different battery designs, one L-shaped for regions with a physical SIM tray, and another rectangular one for eSIM only markets like the US. On paper, this could make sense. In the US, Apple's been eSIM only since the iPhone 14, so why waste space with a SIM slot? But honestly, I'm not totally convinced. Apple usually avoids manufacturing complexity, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of these designs was just a prototype. Either way, it shows like Apple's exploring options. One thing we can say with more certainty is that Apple will give us batteries that are easy to replace. Apple's extending the adhesive removal system from the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus to the 17 Pros, which means technicians and even confident DIY users will be able to use a low voltage current to loosen the glue and pop the battery out more easily. It might sound like a small change, but in the long run, it's huge for repairability, sustainability, and even compliance with the EU regulations pushing for user replaceable batteries. Now, externally, don't expect a radical redesign. Apart from a larger camera bump, the iPhone 17 is going to look familiar. The MagSafe ring is still there, the Type-C port remains, and the squared off design language continues. Where you will notice a difference is the display. Apple's reportedly adding an anti-reflective glass layer, similar to Samsung's Gorilla Glass armor. That means the screen will be easy to see outdoors and also will be resisting scratches better. Combine that with ultra-thin bezels, which is said to be coming to the entire iPhone 17 series, and the result is a noticeably sleeker front design. So to recap, we're looking at a possible 48MP telephoto with up to 8x optical zoom, steel encased batteries with better thermals and easier repairs, anti-reflective displays with ultra-thin bezels, higher storage tier starting at 256 gigs, and most interesting of all, a brand new TechWoven case lineup designed to finally put the FineWoven disaster to rest. The big question now is whether Apple can really pull it off. Will TechWoven redeem Apple's accessory reputation, or is this just FineWoven 2.0 with a new name? And maybe more importantly, are you tempted by the crossbody strap trend, or is that just one gimmick too far? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe because iPhone season is just beginning, and this year, the cases might be just as interesting as the phones themselves.